All right, gang. As promised, we have Mr. Carl Canedy from the Rods on Skype with us tonight. Carl, how you doing, man?
Doing great, Billy. How are you doing?
Doing awesome. Hey, Carl, I want to thank you, man, for calling into the Keep It Metal show tonight and hanging out with us.
My pleasure.
Wow. So, Carl, you're longtime member of the Rods, original member of the Rods, right?
Absolutely. David and I started the Rods. I think it was like late 1979. I can't believe it's been that long. You know, we fire up at rehearsal, and sometimes I'll think, oh my God, how long have we been doing this? This is great. I mean, it's crazy.
Wow. So why don't you give us a little history on the band, man?
Well, you know, David and I actually played in a band called Brian's Idols, which kind of morphed into 805. The very, very early edition, I played with 805 because I'd been playing with David Porter, who sings No One Walks Away on the CD. And we rehearsed in the garage, and Elf rehearsed in the house. So I knew, and I was 19, I think, when I was with that band, and I had seen Elf with Rock and with Ronnie Dio and the guys, you know, for years. I used to go watch them play, and it was like everybody else, the high school dances, everybody was bopping around and dancing, and when Elf played, they had hair down to their ass, and they were like playing this heavy music, and everybody was just stoned and sitting on the floor. It was like the exact opposite of every high school dance you went to at the time. But when they played, it was like a big rock concert. So I'd known Rock, you know, just cursory during that time. And he had done some things, and, you know, he was playing and just wasn't able to get a band together. He had started a project, I think, Thunder. And so we wound up, he just said, hey, let's put something together. And that's how it started. It was very, very, you know, no big master plan.
Well, cool. So years later, man, you decide to do a solo project. Tell us a little bit about that, man.
You know, it's crazy, and people ask me, why did you decide to do a solo project? And you know, the first time I heard that question, I was kind of shocked, because I had to take a step back and think about it, because all these years I produced probably 35, 40 albums, lots of demos for bands. You know, the Rod stuff. I did the Thrasher solo project with Duck McDonald, but it wasn't really a solo album. Duck and I co-wrote all the material. So, you know, all these years, it just never occurred to me to do a solo album. And then I had some songs, and I thought, you know what, maybe it's time to do one. I've got I've got my own little home studio, and just a lot of friends who might be able to help me. And I thought, let's do it. But I never thought in the process that it would be as crazy as it was to put it together.
Well, cool, man. Now how does your solo work differ from the Rods, man?
If you listen on my CD, I have 2 songs I put on as demos, which I play and sing everything. So when I'm bringing songs to the guys or anyone, I'll play everything, and then I'll sing. And, you know, my voice is, I've sung a couple songs on Rod's albums, but, you know, I really am not a vocalist. But I'll sing my songs to get the point across and get my melody and lyrics out there. So I put them on so people could see what exactly I bring when I bring those songs. And, you know, it's just a little bit different approach from the Rods. The Rods is a 3-piece. It's a little bit like limiting. If you notice in this, Chris Caffrey and John Hahn, who's from Harpo and does his own solo work. I played on his first album, actually. You know, he really, you know, a great guitarist, but you have a couple of guitar things there. John Hahn brought a more, I don't know that, like say, orchestral, but definitely a more harmonic type of approach to the music. And, you know, he just did a phenomenal job for me. He's just such a great friend and just a great player. And if you listen to my demos and you listen to what he did, you can see that, you know, he took the songs to a different level in terms of guitar playing. But so it's just a little bit different from the Rods. And the Rods is a 3-piece. It is what it is. It's like Motorhead. You know, you know what you're going to get when you kind of open the package. You know it's going to be Motorhead. And, you know, it's the same thing with the Rods. You know you're basically getting that 3-piece thing. With this, it's a little different. There are a little more colors in it. You know, my daughter sings backups on Cult of the Poison Mind, and she sings backups on The Code. And, you know, on the Rod stuff, it's probably unlikely you're going to hear any female vocalists doing backups.
Cool. That's really, and it's even cooler that it's your daughter, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. You know, my daughter she has a degree in music education. She's a music teacher now, and you know, she's certainly more talented than I am by far. But it was interesting because in Cult of the Poison Mind, there's what sounds like a choir singing. That's all Aaron, and I had this keyboard part that I laid down. It was just a single line keyboard part, and I thought, oh, I like this melody. And I said, Aaron, would you just sing a part, like see if there's a voice that goes with this, see how that sounds, adding it to the keyboard. And then she said, let me try some things. And the next thing you know, she comes up with that whole choir, which for me makes the whole song. So I was thrilled, you know, watching her work as an adult. It was great.
Awesome. That's awesome. So, you know, as a father myself, have you achieved cool dad status yet, or?
You know, I don't know. I think you're the cool dad when they're little, and everything you say is funny, and then it hits a point where you're just an embarrassment, and then your wheels in a wallet for a few years. But you know, Erin's always been a cool kid, and I'm sure to this day I still embarrass her in certain things. But on the other hand, I think she's, you know, come to terms with the fact that, you know, her dad's probably not like every other dad my age, you know, is out playing heavy metal and traveling around. So, you know, there's probably a little bit of a cool cachet to that, but overall, you know, she's a great person, and, you know, we get along well as equals, so that's what's great about her being an adult now.
That's great, man. That's great. So, the songwriting on Headbanger, are you the main songwriter, or did you collaborate?
I am. No, I had some, like, basic criteria for the album was I wanted to own every song, all the publishing for every song. And I say that simply because early on there were a couple of songs. We signed a publishing deal with the Rods, and I gave foolishly, because I wasn't advised otherwise by my manager at the time to not do it. But I actually submitted some extra songs to MCA. I wanted to redo a couple of those songs that I had written early on in the Rods, you know, in the early days of the Rods. But they own those songs. And not that I couldn't do them, but, you know, I'd have to pay a royalty to them. And I thought, you know, it seems a little uncomfortable for me to pay a royalty when I want to record one of my songs. Right. So I thought, I'm not going to do that. So the criteria was pretty basic. I was going to own every song, write every song, 100% of every song. And the other thing was that everyone would come to this as a community kind of project. And I wasn't going to pay one person more than another person was paid. It was an equal thing for everyone. And I didn't vary from that at all. And sometimes some people put in more work than others and so on. But it was an equal set of pay for everybody, you know. And it was just, that's what I brought to it. I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page. And basically people volunteer their time is essentially what it was.
Oh, that's really cool.
And yeah. I had a couple of opportunities to have some friends who just needed money for a studio or engineer or whatever, and I just wouldn't do it because it would have been kind of breaking that. So the criteria was basic: own 100% of the songs, write 100% of the songs, and, you know, have everyone come to it on an equal basis in terms of performance fee.
Very cool, very cool. So now, how would you describe the sound on Headbanger?
You know, I think, Billy, you have to do that. I don't know that I can describe it. I know that when John Hahn certainly is a huge part of the sound. His guitar playing is phenomenal, and his style is certainly, it has signature style. So that certainly brings that to it. My drumming, you know, I certainly approach drumming from a certain perspective. But you know, it was an interesting thing for me because having produced so many projects, the Rods have done so much recording. But I'd never been at the point where I was the one to make the final decision on the overall. And nobody knew what it sounded like. Everybody came in, they gave their parts. They either, uploaded files. They did them in their own studio. They came here and did it, but they only heard their piece. And so I was the only one who had the big picture of what this was going to sound like at the end. And it was challenging to get it to sound homogenized, blending so it like one unified sound. One of the things I was concerned with as well was a lot of times solo albums with different singers, you're hearing one or two songs, and then the next songs by other singers, totally different band, different sound, and I didn't want that. I wanted it to be a cohesive album, which was challenging, but at the end of the day, what does it sound like? What does it sound like? You'd have to decide that. But I know that for me, it was definitely a challenge to complete the project in such a way that I felt that we were really cohesive from song to song, and that there was an identity, and that it wasn't just, whoa, where did that come from? So, that was what my effort was, to try to complete it. And I found it really a daunting task at the end. Every time there was a question to ask, hey, well, what do you think? There was nobody around to answer me.
Well, I would definitely say you can hear like that old school 80s metal influence in there.
Absolutely, yeah.
But with the new twist, definitely,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's the certainly more modern production.
Cool, man, cool. So, Carl, you're not just drummer and writer, but you were touching on a little bit about producing and engineering, man. How'd you get involved in that?
I've always been involved in, interested in recording. Always been fascinated by it. I had a girlfriend who rented a tape recorder that was a mono tape recorder, and then had her friend sign out another one at Elmira College. And when I was first starting out, I don't know how old I was, 16 or 17, and just getting into it. And, I would bounce tracks from one recorder to the other. And I've just always been into it, every kind of piece of technology I could get my hands on. So I've always been fascinated by recording. But when we came to the Rods album, and actually there's an album that's been re-released called Colossus, which, I'm sure some of the fans will start to hear about. But that was the first album I ever recorded and contributed songs to. And at that point, whoever wrote the song produced the song. So that was really my first, dealing with being a producer in the studio, which, we were young and it was expensive, and we were kind of throwing the kitchen sink at it. But at the end of the day, in terms of the remix and re-release, I'm really happy that we just were so adventurous, and we didn't have any boundaries musically. We just figured this is what we want to do, and we went for it and did it. So it was cool. And that was really my first thing into production. And then when the Rods thing started with David and I, a lot of times David and I were the only guys in the studio, and we would both, if we're out doing a drum track or we're doing something, we'd work on it together, and I'd help him with things, or, that's how it really developed from there. And essentially, what it boils down to, it was just being poor and not having money to hire a producer. So, I wish I could say it was some grand scheme, and but it was just, trial and error, and nobody else is here, so I guess it's down to us to figure it out.
Necessity. Awesome. So, Carl, the first song I want to play tonight, My Life, My Way. What can you tell us about the tune?
That song is really a very, I love the song, but it's a personal song to me. And it was my best friend. We started together when we were about 14, and we were just crazy. We practiced all the time. And we were into Hendrix and Cream and Blue Cheer, and we were just like into heavy music when, back then. And we were just kids, but we were playing constantly, hours a day. And so we had been best friends forever, and a few years, like 3 years ago, we were talking, and he told me about a tattoo he had gotten, but he didn't tell me what the tattoo was. And shortly after that, he was diagnosed with cancer. He was telling me he had a problem with his shoulder, and he was going to the doctor, and then telling me the doctor thought maybe it was to go to an oncologist. As it turns out, 3 months later, he was dead from the cancer. So it was pretty crushing to lose your best friend. And, as adults, he had become a guitar maker, J. Nunes Guitars, which if anybody looks them up, they're phenomenal instruments. And I think his company was ready to break. He was doing some great work. But anyway, when they were telling me about his last moments and, just who he was, because he was just a guy who lived by his own rules, and how his arm fell open and the tattoo, it kind of said it all. And tattoo was My Life, My Way. So when they told me that, it just had a big impact on me, and I thought, I'm just going to write a song about this, because he was my best friend, and, it just was a sad loss for me, but I wanted to write something to kind of say something about his life and his attitude. So that's really what it is. So it's a special song to me from that standpoint, but it's also a song I really like. And I thought that Mark Tornillo just killed it. Gary Chesick, who's actually from this area, plays in the Jeffrey James band with me. Gary was a big utility guy for me. Every time I needed something, Gary would just come in and pick it up and just get it done for me, which was such a huge help to finishing the album. So, and of course, John Hahn and Chris Caffrey plays on this as well. They trade solos. So.
Oh, very cool. All right, gang. Check it out. My Life, My Way from Carl Canedy. We'll be right back.
But I stood my ground and let them push me around.
All right, gang, we're back with Mr. Carl Canedy. Awesome tune, brother. My Life, My Way. Excellent song.
Thanks, man.
Awesome, awesome. So, Carl, when did you first pick up the sticks, man? And when did you know that this is what you wanted to do?
Well, I knew it was what I wanted to do when I was 4.5. I actually, my mother took me to a reception, and it was in like a VFW, and I remember two things about that event. One was that there was a big-ass tank out front, which, you know, was pretty common, but at the time, when you're 4.5, I just remember this thing was huge. I remember thinking, oh my God, look at that thing. It's like this huge metal thing, and, you know, like, wow. And then we went inside, and I saw the drum kit, and it was like the white lights and the Hallelujah singers. I literally was just like, oh my God. And that was my moment when I was like, I didn't even see the guy playing. They were just sitting there. And I went, wow. And that was it. And from that time on, all I did was just hound to get drums, was just beg to get drums. And, you know, we were poor, so I actually didn't get drums until I was 13. So, you know, then all of a sudden at that point I was playing every minute I could. And then I was playing guitar shortly after that. I, you know, started playing guitar within a few months of getting drums. So I would basically play drums until, you know, they would just come and beat me up for playing at night. And then I would play guitar the rest of the time and bang on piano. So that was my life. I knew at that point, at 13, I just knew I had to hit the ground running.
Awesome. That's awesome. But I you know, I was chuckling a little bit because, you know, I can remember playing knockoff Fender Strats with 5 strings, and, you know.
That's right. That's right. Still.
So, Carl, who would you say are your personal musical influences, man?
You know, I have to say that I would have to cite, I mean, I certainly love John Bonham as one of my favorite all-time drummers, but there are a million drummers. Billy Cobham was a huge influence on me. But I studied with Carmine Appice, and Carmine was my hero before I started studying with him. And I started studying with him when he was actually playing. I was probably 19, I think, or 20, maybe even 21. Yeah. But Carmine had finished Vanilla Fudge, and he was in Cactus, and that was over. So it was somewhere there between Beck Bogert and Appice, but he'd had some big success. And studying with him changed everything for me, because prior to that, I'd had a couple of lessons from local people who told me, oh, you're playing too hard. One guy told me you're playing too hard, and basically you suck. And so after a couple of months of that, I thought, why am I paying this guy to tell me I suck? And he told me I played too hard, and I played match grip, and I didn't want to play traditional grip because I was playing rock drums, and I wanted to play that way. And the guy told me I would never be a NARD, National Association of Rudimental Drummers. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I wonder if I could do that. You'll never do that. So, and ultimately I did become certified as, you know, with my NARD certification. I wanted to like take it to the guy and go, hey, pal, check this out. But you know, it was a very negative thing. So when I got to so I didn't take lessons after that. I just listened to everything and basically by ear tried to mimic things. That's why Hal Blaine is a big joke with my family, because my daughter knows every song Hal Blaine played on, because that's how I learned. It was a huge lesson. I learned how to play flams from Hal Blaine. I didn't know they were called flams. I just learned how to play them by listening to all these songs. And I never knew it was one guy. I thought it was a multitude of drummers. So when I got to Carmine, he actually taught me, you know, started to learn to read music. He took me through a couple of books. He took me through his syncopation, some different things, stick control. And but what he did was, some of the things I was doing, he would say, that's technically wrong, but it's really cool, so don't change that, keep that. So that was a whole different approach, entirely different approach from what I'd been exposed to, and it was huge for me. So the fact that his drumming and his attitude as a performer, and also just as an educator, was phenomenal. And then after Carmine, about a year later, I was able to take lessons from Tony Williams. So both of those guys, I have to say, and Tony Williams, actually to this day, we used to sit and talk at lessons a lot after a point. And his philosophy about music, and he went back to school and he studied theory and became a composer late in his career. And it was clear from our conversations when I read that he had gone back to school and studied and listening, buying what he was doing, and listening to it, that obviously our talks, he was headed that direction, because I still approach some of the things in terms of production based on my talks with him. So, those are big influences for me, but really I listen to and probably more honestly steal from everybody, no matter what band they're in, no matter what I hear on the radio. I'm like, oh, I hear that, that's cool. I'm going to try to play some kind of variation of that. That's cool. So I steal from everybody.
Cool, man, cool. And Carmine Appice, but that he's like a legend in the business, and that's awesome that you had that opportunity with him.
It was, and the fact that he was a huge star, but he was a really cool guy and a great educator was a big, a big eye-opener for me, knowing that, a lot of times when you're from a small town and you're not exposed to celebrities, you get that they're bigger than life, and in fact it was true that you don't have to be a jackass, and you can still be successful and not be a jackass, because a lot of the people locally who had success just doing cover bands had a way bigger attitude than Carmine had, who'd had genuine success. So it was a great experience all around for me to see that nothing really good about being a jackass at any point in your career. And he told me, if you're playing to get laid or you're playing because you want to get rich, you're playing for the wrong reasons. And I think at my age, I'm playing and loving it as much as I did when I was 13 and got my first drums. So I think it was great advice, that he gave me.
That's really cool, man. That's really cool. So, Carl, nowadays, what music do you listen to, man? What do you jam to?
I listen to everything. I listen to everything, and a lot of times it's a joke with my daughter, because I'll say, "Aaron, who's that?" "I don't know, Dad. I don't know who that is." And I always want to know, but it's really hard sometimes when you're just listening to the radio. So it's hard to find out who the artists are. A lot of times I Soundhound and whatever, I'll try to find out who they are. But, so I listen to a lot of stuff, lately I've gone back to, I was really into the Avenged Sevenfold album for a while, but I've been into the Winery Dogs for a while as well. But, I listen to everything, so.
Cool,
and
man.
It's all kinds of music, it's not, I like anything that's really good, so I'm wide open in terms of that.
Very cool, very cool. So now, when you're not writing, touring, rehearsing, producing, man, what do you do for a day off, man? What do you enjoy doing? For me, a day off is actually to just sit in front of my computer and plug my guitar in. That's like a big plus for me, because that's the thing I find the hardest. I know that I have to practice my drums. I know I have to do some kind of exercise to stay in shape to play those drums. And but it's hard to find the downtime where you can just pick up the guitar and sit and play for a couple of hours and not, be interrupted by a phone and, or have something to do. So that's a big plus for me, and something I love to do. Very cool, man. Very cool. So now, in all your years, what would you say is your most memorable moment, man?
I would say there are a couple, and I would say that the first time I actually, when you're a young musician, you're struggling. You want to get a record deal at the time, especially at the time, because now music business has changed. But at the time, it was bottlenecked. If you wanted to get your music out, you needed to be signed to a label, and indies were few and far between, really, and you needed to be signed to a major in order to have any shot at success. So for us achieving that, which you worked for years to get to at the time, getting signed to a major label, and then we did our first show at the Boone County Arena, opening for Blue Oyster Cult.
Wow.
So being able to be on that stage to a sold-out show, and the crowd going nuts, and the big rush of that, and at the end I threw my drumsticks into the crowd, which was really cool. I've seen all the drummers like flying their drums, hurling the drums into the crowd, and I did that, and of course immediately backstage was told, "Don't ever do that again. That's a lawsuit." So I was like, oh man, and thank God at least I did it, once, because after that it was like you had to toss into the crowd gently. But that was a big highlight. And the other really big highlight of my career was writing the code and Ronnie Dio coming into David's studio in Cortland and just watching him sing. I'd heard so much about Ronnie from David, how he was a one-take guy, and he was so kind, he was so considerate of my song. He just sang it unbelievably well, and it was amazing for me. And I've worked with so many great singers, so to work with somebody who I just didn't think it was possible to work with somebody who could take it up that many notches, and he was just phenomenal. And literally he never did an extra take. He only did a couple little pieces to try something different, but he never did it for a performance, and just blown away. But the fact that he sang one of my songs, and a song that I'd written, and it was just such a great experience. It was truly a highlight of my career.
Wow. That's wow. Wow. Okay, yeah, that's awesome, man. That really is. That's and again, Ronnie James Dio, another legend in the industry. Wow. That's really cool that you had that opportunity.
Absolutely. And such a great guy, we were interviewed after his death, and Sweden Rock magazine interviewed me as one of the many, many people they interviewed. And after, he was asking me about Ronnie, and I just told him, my experiences, and just what an intelligent, sweet, kind guy he was, and just you couldn't help but love the guy, and he loved his fans. David would tell me he'd be sick as a dog, and he would still do the show so he wouldn't disappoint the fans, and then he would stand there for 2 hours and sign everything when he was dying because he wouldn't let the fans down. I mean, the guy really loved his fans, but the interviewer said to me, I can't, with the exception of Vivian Campbell, I can't find anyone who has anything bad to say about Ronnie, which in the music business is rare because it's a pretty sleazy business and a lot of ego. So,
right.
Not only was he phenomenal in terms of his career, but as a person as well.
That's awesome, man. So, Carl, let's take it the other way, man. Do you have any Spinal Tap moments you'd like to share with us?
I think my whole career is a Spinal Tap moment. In fact, I remind Gary, my bass player, regularly about, I just couldn't stop laughing because the three of us went to see Spinal Tap. And I guess the first Spinal Tap moment where we realized it was the three of us went to see Spinal Tap thinking it was like some kind of rockumentary. We thought it was some kind of, maybe a legitimate movie. I don't know. It was our first Spinal Tap moment. So we're sitting there, and halfway through the movie, and our bass player, Gary, has the driest sense of humor. He's like Will Ferrell, does not crack a smile, when he says something humorous. He just drops the line, and that's it. And he turns to me in the middle of the movie, and he says, I didn't know we made a movie. And, every part of that movie, it's true. But we've had a ton of Spinal Tap moments, and, we continue to have them. It's just the nature of the beast. So,
no exploding drummers, fortunately, right?
Well, Billy, there's so many. There was a period of time when we first started where we were doing shows. We were struggling to get work, and it was starting to build for us. So we would take all of our money, and we bought these 18s. So I think we had 4 18s aside, and so we had 8 18s. So we would do these percussion. There was a pipe, and you put some flash powder in, which is totally crazy, and I don't know how we ever got away with it and how anybody ever did. And unfortunately, tragically, people died because of that type of thing in clubs. But, we didn't have any of those incidents. However, what would happen was, it was just like the classic Spinal Tap moment. We had an intro tape, and it was all serious and rumbling and frightening, and then it would come on, and you hear the music, and we'd play, and we'd be dark, and we'd have fog and this rumbling. And then, of course, we would come out, and then at the end of that, we would hit the first chord, and the flash pots would go off, or these percussion bombs would go off. And we couldn't figure it out because boom, and then all of a sudden we sounded thin. And because all of our 18 subs were blown. It took us about 4 times of sending the 18s back to the factory at great expense to us before somebody said, you're leaving your microphones open and you're just popping your subs. So we'd come on and we'd like big, heavy sound, and of course then we'd sound like a transistor radio. So, I've got a million stories like that.
Oh God, that's awesome. Oh my God. Well, Carl, the next song I want to play, man, Cult of the Poisoned Mind. What can you tell us about the tune?
You know, Cult of the Poisoned Mind was a song that lyrically was something that had always fascinated me, from different cults, different things, from, you know, just how people will follow something so blindly and allow any leader to just tell them what their opinion is. And so it's always fascinated me that certain things some people don't continue to question or decide on their own what works for them or what they believe. They just blindly accept what someone tells them. And so it's always been something. And I think that the final part of this was the Mormon wives, Jeff's, who's in prison now. But it was that. I mean, I just watched the wives talking about, you know, how cool it was, and he did nothing wrong, and it was just, they were just totally brainwashed people, and it was kind of sad. So lyrically, that's how this just came about, was just kind of over the years, my observations of people who were just brainwashed and totally believe. And so I wrote it from the perspective of, you know, the omnipotent being rolling out that info. And musically, it was just an idea I was jamming to. It was just seemed really heavy, and I thought, this is a cool groove. Initially, my demo actually has congas on it, these little subtle little conga riffs in it, but I decided not to put it in because it took a little bit away. Once the vocals, Aaron's vocals were in there, I thought, yeah, I'm just going to leave those out. But, so that's it.
Very cool.
I love the song. I love what Aaron did to it vocally. I think it just elevated the song.
Awesome, awesome. All right, gang, check it out. This is Cult of the Poisoned Mind from Carl Canedy. We'll be right back.
the poison mind. Leave your will and your thoughts so far behind. As you enter the cult of the poisoned mind. Welcome to my poisoned mind. Welcome to my poisoned mind. You've left your will and your thoughts behind. As you enter the cult of the poisoned mind. Welcome.
All right, gang, we're back with Mr. Carl Canedy. That was Cult of the Poison Mind. Awesome tune, dude. Awesome.
Thank you. Thanks.
Now, that's the one your daughter sang on, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And it, you know, it makes it even better that you have that kind of relationship with your daughter, that, you know, she would come and, you know, join you on a tune.
It is for me. I mean, A, I'm proud as a father, but B, it was just like I'm living in a house with somebody who can collaborate. I mean, to me, what she brought to that song really elevated that song. I mean, it's so much better with her contribution than it would have been without it. So, you know, I'm thrilled that she brought that.
Awesome. Now, Carl, what advice would you have for bands just starting out, man?
Well, I think it's important to, you know, there's so many things I would tell a young artist, and I do tell young bands I work with, but I think it's important to, if you're going to sign anything, have a good music, and don't have just any attorney. Have a music business attorney who's in New York or in LA, and, you know, you can shop around, you can try to negotiate prices, but if you have to have a contract reviewed, negotiate a price, and make sure you have a really good music business attorney negotiate that, or if nothing else, look it over and tell you the parts that you need to negotiate to improve upon. And the other thing is, in this day and age when you can just do whatever recordings you choose and get them out to the public, I think it's more important than ever to not worry about trends, to be true to yourself, because at the end of the day, that's all you have, is what you believe in your music. So there's no reason to compromise it in any way, shape, or form. Just stay true to who you are, what you believe in. Just do it, and, you know, let the music speak for itself, and hopefully you'll find an audience. But you know, I think any type of compromise is just a waste of time in this day and age.
Yeah, great advice, man. Great advice. You know, and I often talk with bands about you know, with the social media nowadays, and like we were talking a little bit about home recording studios, you almost don't need that major label record deal nowadays to get your stuff out there.
No, I agree. You absolutely don't. There's no reason why you can't just little learning curve, and you know, you can do your own recordings. And, you know, if you do spend money and you want to elevate your recording a little bit, and you don't have, you know, a good space and good microphones, you can always take your drummer into the studio. I mean, we have a great studio here, Sound Investment Studios. I mean, there are a number of studios here, but Sound Investment Studios is a great studio, and I've been recording and mastering things there for a number of years. And you know, I just think it's a great place. I think Wiki's a great engineer. Tom is a great mastering engineer, and it's a very affordable studio. So if you do all your stuff at home and you go in there and you replace the drums so you have a more professional sound, it's still affordable. And I agree with you.
Cool. And, you know, and obviously, you know, with the major label record deals, you know, they got the money. You know, they can pump out the promotion and put you on tour and whatnot. But at the end of the day, they're also the guys with their hands out.
Right. There's no doubt that you're going to give up something to get something, and and that's fine as long as you're aware of what you're giving up and it's acceptable to you. And I think for what you're getting, and I think that's why you need a good music business attorney, so you're aware of what you're giving up and is it worth it to you. And you want that music business attorney to explain to you, for he or she to explain what it is you're giving up and what it truly means, because when you're first starting out, you're not aware of what that may mean to you later in your career. So, it's important to have somebody who's been there, knows what it really means, to explain it to you, what it means and where it'll wind up for you, so you can make a more educated decision on whether it's the right fit for you.
Very cool, very cool. So now, you have any plans for Headbanger Man? Is this something you're going to take on the road?
I would love to do at least a few shows with this, but at this point, there've been a couple of the guys have talked about it. I would love to do it. Logistically, it's difficult. You have a lot of musicians, and they're in different areas. So I don't know. I mean, it's something that we'll see what happens. I mean, it would be great to do at least a couple of shows. So, the CD seems to be doing very well. It's building momentum, and if the stars align themselves, we all may be able to get together and do a show or two.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, do you have plans for a second solo CD?
Well, I suppose it's like when you hear women talk about giving birth, how it's horrific, but then they'll have another child at some point. And this was it was a bit traumatic for me at the end, because I really had never experienced that. I mean, all the albums I had done, I thought, well, I kind of know how to do an album now. I've done a lot of them. I know how to take them from point A to point B and complete them and get them out. And this was just a shock to me, going, looking around, and there's no one there to give me any input. And I had a lot of self-doubt and concern that anybody would even like this. Does it sound good? I mean, I was just having a meltdown. So the thought of going through that again, I'm not sure. On the other hand, I am working on material, and I know better how to approach doing the solo album. So, all I can say is maybe, Billy. I don't know.
Awesome. Well, hopefully on our end, the listeners' end, hopefully. You have any upcoming shows? Any upcoming appearances going on with the Rods or whatnot?
Yes, actually. I'm trying to think. I think this coming weekend, the Jeffrey James Band is at Tomatoes, for all the local people who know that club. The Rods are going to Chicago for Ragnarok on May 2nd. So we have that coming up. And then we have a show at Susie's in Auburn, which is always a fun club for us. And then we go to, after that, we go to Belgium, Heavy Sound Festival, and I think we're playing in Lubeck 2 nights later. And then there's another announcement that will be made shortly, and I don't want to make the announcement before they do, so I'm going to wait for them. But, at this point, that's what we have going. Then there's Dio Day on the 20th. So,
awesome.
A few things coming up.
Very cool, very cool. Well, and you also have ties to Northeast PA, and you're one of the panelists on the 2015 Steamtown Music Awards, right?
That's right.
That's awesome.
Looking forward to that.
And
I love the fact that we have this kind of support and this kind of thing going on in this area, because there's a strong. And I was never aware of it because I was always busy and traveling, but I'm just impressed with the metal scene here and what we have. I mean, I think we're talking about Mark Uracek. You've got, as a writer, you got a great writer. You got great people who support music here, like such as yourself, and got some great bands, Beyond Fallen. I mean, there's so much talent here.
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable, the scene we have here, and it's really cool that there's nominations for best metal act. All the genres, your favorite guitarist, favorite drummer, so on and so forth, favorite producer.
Hey, I think I'm going to nominate myself. He said, "Think that'll be okay to vote for myself?" No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, but that's really cool that you're a part of that, and it's happening, and just another feather in the hat for Northeast Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I'm a transplant to Northeast PA because I'm originally from upstate New York, but I've come to love it here. It's definitely home for me now.
That's great, man. That's great. Where can the listeners find Carl Canedy, Headbanger, The Rods, man? What websites can we find you on?
Well, if you go to therods.com, you're going to find a banner for Canedy Store, and in there you can buy Canedy Headbanger CD. You can actually buy the Colossus album I mentioned earlier. You can just get whatever. There are new Canedy T-shirts out, actually. And you can get drumsticks, whatever's there, you can buy Rod stuff. And cdbaby.com, you can go there for Canedy stuff and for the CDs. And anywhere in iTunes, Amazon, etc., anywhere you download, Spotify, any streaming services that you might use. So it's all there, Pandora, wherever.
Awesome. And they, of course, they can find you guys on Facebook, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
We're on Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Very cool. Well, Carl, and the last song I want to play tonight, No One Walks Away. What can you tell us about the tune?
Well, No One Walks Away had a really interesting start. No One Walks Away was Kelly Patrick, who, if you're from this area, you know that Kelly Patrick is one of the large dance studios. And Kelly came to me, and she wanted to do something like Stomp, and she was doing that kind of show. And she asked me if I'd do a percussion thing for her. So, and Kelly and I are friends, and I love Kelly, so of course I said yes. And so I started playing this rhythm, and she actually used it in her show. And I thought, it's a cool groove, it just kind of sat there, and it was just that drum piece I put down, and I thought, this is really cool. And if you listen to Headbanger, you'll hear No One Walks Away, and you're going to hear those drums that I did for Kelly Patrick, because those were the original demo drums I did for her. And then I went back and started playing to it and started writing the song. So, it originated from that, and that's kind of, that was that and my Jim Morrison-inspired lyrics.
Awesome. Carl, man, I want to thank you for taking the time and hanging out with us tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you, man.
Billy, it was a blast. Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Hang on one second, Carl. Check it out, listeners. This is No One Walks Away from Carl Canedy. We'll be right back.